It links it to Russia. While its purpose and principles were decided at a conference of foreign ministers held in Moscow, the secretaries of the United Nations Security Council between the years 1946 and 62 were, those two people, both communist. A leading figure of the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organisation, UNESCO, that's the one that's going to get the children. That's the one that's dictating all the policies of how the kids get educated throughout the world. Was that person, a communist. The Chief Secretary for UNESCO was Madame Jelova, communist, while the President and Vice President and 9 judges of the World Court were all communist. That's from The Broken Cross by Compton at page 62. Whenever you go into a law court, you can put that stuff in as long as you quote the source. Is that correct, Chris? As long as you quote sources, you can put it into affidavit work. UNESCO. Now have a little look at what the compilation of this is. Under Huxley, and we won't go back into where all this framed from and whatever, because this is not a courtroom presentation. I don't need to produce the evidence. It can go up there and they can work it out. Under Huxley, UNESCO envisaged the destruction of children's love of country and patriotism as the first step to a one-world state. Talk to your children about this and listen to their answers. And you'll see how much of that is already gone. Under a one-world government, Huxley envisaged it, and under communism, the teachers are the principal formers of your child's mind. That's the United Nations agenda. Hand them over to them, is what they're saying. United Nations Association of Australia Incorporated. Do you like that title? We've even got an incorporated organisation here to run this. Guess who the patron is? Governor-General Quinton Bryce. Vice patrons, Adams, Alexander, Berton, Gareth Evans, Andrew Gaze, Nozzle, Packpoy, Andrew Peacock and Michael Kirby. Now do you all know who Michael Kirby is? Just retired High Court judge. Also charged for grand jury work because he's revealed the fact that he's concealed the fact the Crown's been removed from Western Australia. But who's the current Chief Justice of the High Court today? French. Where did French come from? Western Australia. Did French know or aware of that the Crown's gone from Western Australia? So the moment he goes and sits on the High Court bench, has he polluted the other 6 judges? Well, don't go near the High Court with this issue. It's only grand jury. What are you going to do about it? I haven't got a clue. But if you don't go back and ask God, what do you want to do? You're not doing the right thing either. Because you will not get through this. You're up against a spiritual force. And it's coming right out of the heart and hub of the UN meditation room. The United Nations Police Association of Australia. That's the heading underneath what you call True Blue. It says Official Magazine of United Nations Police Association of Australia, Autumn 2000. It's called True Blue because that's the Blue Lodge of Freemasonry. And Freemasonry is the hub of all of making this happen throughout the world. Communist, socialist. There's the question we need to ask. Because I sat down to think, well, if I'm going to speak about this, I better define what socialism is. So what is socialism? Now, I got this out of the Webster's Dictionary, so it's a clear and concise little thing. It says a theory or method of social organisation and government whereby the citizenry jointly owns the means of production and distribution and the power of administrative control is vested in the state. Now we can clearly change the word from socialism to communism and it don't work. Because that's why they use the word democracy. The word democracy only puts you to sleep because you think everyone at the top is then looking after you. They're not doing that at all. They're working a program to make sure something happens in this country that interlocks. Now, under National Socialism, out of the Webster Dictionary, that's what came up. The totalitarian policies and practices of the Nazi Party under Adolf Hitler. You're now under socialism, but socialism has a structure where it doesn't appear to be moving. And your democratic process has been removed. Your courts and politicians have been informed to suspend your constitutions. Do you want me to reiterate that? Are you aware that they've been told to do that? Now, there won't be a piece of paper that you'll find where they're told to do that, because that's not how these structures work. But the boys at the top and women at the top have been told to suspend your state constitutions and your Commonwealth Constitution and move you all into the UN. Do you like that?
No way.
Well, Aussie, you're letting it happen because Barry House knows what's happening, so does Bowler, and Bowler has actually got a grand jury application sitting against him back in Melbourne where he shouldn't even be your state politician. He has full knowledge, he has to have that he's a defendant for a jury hearing. But he's your state politician and you're letting it happen. So don't think this hadn't come to your town, it's here in your town. Fabian Socialists. Now, we just took some extracts of some of their stuff because when you get these people to say yay or nay, they usually are lying to you. The Fabian Society was named after the Roman general Fabius Maximus of the 3rd century. John Maynard Keynes in the 1930s devised economic policies to accomplish peaceful transition to a socialist world. Now, they're working it out that if you do it peacefully, they won't see that we're doing it. For total socialism to be accepted, patriotism had to be destroyed along with national pride and history, courage and tradition of freedom. Now, let me accentuate that. On 3 different occasions, I have been personally to the president of the RSL in Perth to say, what is the RSL doing about the Crown being taken out of West Australia? Because at 6 o'clock you stand there every night and blow a bugle and say, lest we forget, and you're dancing on the graves of all those people. Is that a fair comment? Is that a fair comment?
Yep. Yes.
Well, give it to the RSL and say, it says, lest we forget. That's got to stop, because a lot of people died to maintain our rights and liberties.
Amen.
And we have an obligation to make sure that their death is not forgotten.
Amen.
And that's what that means. It means we'll destroy your history. Fabians had to learn to subvert and change the thinking of whole populations. And here in Australia, they've done a real good job. Wake up, Aussie. The 50-year-old constitution of the Fabian Society was changed to read, the Fabian Society shall be affiliated with the Labor Party. Its activities will be the furtherance of socialism and the education of the public. In essence, into communism. When the Labor Party came to power in England in 1949, the chairman of the Fabian Colonial Bureau was posted to the government's colonial office as Secretary of State for the colonies, and couldn't they wreak havoc from that position? Their main target at all times was wealth. Nationalisation is not essential to the achievement of social equality or socialism. Progressive taxation is a simpler route. Amen? I want to ask you a question here. With the Crown out of Western Australia, and this is only a couple of pages of the Act that removed the Crown, so here's the evidence in your own Parliament that your Crown's gone. Sorry, Gary. It's called the Acts Amendment and Repeal Courts and Legal Practice Act. This has been kicking around in Kalgoorlie for a short time, as in a couple of years. And the pastors have let it happen in this town. Why? Because they have